We're talking all about scarves today, and we've got Mags Kandis here, who's one of the contributing designers to the new book, Knitting Green. Welcome, Mags.
Thank you for having me.
And this is a totally different take on the scarf.
Well, it's a normal take on a scarf, but how I get my yarn to knit my scarf is a little bit different. I really like the idea of reducing, reusing, and recycling. And I have to tell you, there's a little story with this. I had this wonderful skirt that I had bought on my travels many years ago, and I just was not wearing it any longer. But I still couldn't get rid of it. It was always in my closet, and I finally thought, you know, I should make something that I'll really enjoy. And I love scarves. So I took out some simple tools, and I ended up making my own yarn out of recycled silk. This is a silk skirt, but I had the best time cutting it up and making the yarn for it.
It's really amazing, and it gives us just incredible dimension to the stitches. It's got a totally different look, and you get to kind of carry around a piece of something with the little history attached, little story attached.
Definitely, and I made a little tag for the bottom of it that says Paris, so it'll always remind me of where I got it from. So I enjoy doing it. And then I started looking at other things around my house. I went, well, if I can make yarn out of a silk skirt, what about that gray T-shirt that's got the hole in the neckband? And I was sort of picking at my husband going, do you want that shirt? Give me that. And I grabbed an old gray T-shirt of his. And the only thing that you have to sort of keep in mind is there may be some details to the garment that you may want to remove. So this one had a breast pocket, which is quite common. With just a simple seam ripper, I removed the pocket. That's it.
For something else, you might take off like lapels.
With the skirt, I took off the waistband. Okay. It was an elastic waistband. Anything that will be in your way while you're cutting it. Now you can cut it with simple scissors, like make your strips. But to make it a little bit faster, what I like using is a
rotary cutter.
A rotary cutter and a board to cut on, so you're not hurting your table, and just a good sharp blade. And I will create my own yarn.
Okay.
I'm making it relatively the length of my cutting blade, so I don't have to go and move my cutting blade, because you're going to hurt yourself at that point. But I will start making strips with my rotary cutter. Okay. You can measure them if you wish, but I just find if you sort of eyeball it to the width you want, you're going to be doing great. And you just start creating strips. You may have to have a pass or two, that one liberated well, and then I'll do another one.
And of course those are really 4 times as long as the length that we're
exactly,
seeing here.
And you're going to be making sort of these loops because it is a T-shirt, so it's sort of joined on either side.
So then
you start getting these
strips. What do you do to, I mean, you want to make them into one continuous length before you knit?
Well, with the T-shirting and with the silk scarf, all I did was simple overhand knots. It was just a nice way of making it that little bit of detail, that little bit of fringe that goes on. And that's what I've done with the T-shirting. I'll just take the lengths and I'll knot them together, overhand knot, nothing fancy. If you want to do something fancy, go right ahead. I've tried sewing them together on a sewing machine or hand stitching them together. With the T-shirting, just knots are great, and I end up making a ball of the yarn. And this is how much I've made just out of this T-shirt so far. And then you get to start knitting it. And this also has a fabulous texture. You wouldn't know this was a T-shirt. It feels like some sort of incredible creped yarn that you've paid big bucks for.
A really great jersey kind of drape to it.
It does.
Because of course the T-shirt is made of jersey.
It is. And it is wonderful, and it will go for long distances. So I'm hoping to get a scarf as long as this out of the T-shirt.
So how much, I mean, would you want to make all of your yarn before you started knitting, or knit some, cut some, knit some, cut some?
You know, because it is so willy-nilly, it's not, you don't know you need 8 balls of this yarn to make this project. I would just have a whole bunch of T-shirts or a whole bunch of silk or bed sheets or whatever your fabric is, and have it ready to go and have it ready to cut, and be willing to be sort of creative in, okay, maybe it wasn't as long as you wanted it to be, or maybe you have to start again. My scarf, I did it a couple of times, I was too wide to begin with, because you don't know what the gauge is.
Right.
And play around with your knitting needles too. This one, I started off quite densely and it wasn't working, and then when I opened up the stitch, it looked really, really fun.
So the yarn really kind of dictates a lot of what you're
really
doing.
does, and you're making the yarn, and it's your own unique yarn, so there is no formula of how to make the project.
Well, so show us a couple of other ways of joining the strips together.
Well, if you don't want to knot them and if you don't want to sew them, another wonderful way of doing it, and this is really great with a woven textile, probably not as much with a weave, but I have a few strips of just a muslin here. And what you do is, once you have your strips, you take an end and you fold it over about 3/4 of an inch.
Okay.
And then you take your scissors and then you just snip it a 1/4 inch or so. So you're going to have a little slit at the end.
Okay.
And you do that to the end of each one, both sides. And then what you do is you take your yarn and you slide one end through a new length. And you pass it through. Oops, where is it? There it is. Then you take the other end and you pass it through that slit. So you're doing like half hitches.
Right.
All the way along. And what it does is you don't get the ties so pronounced as you would with the overhand knot.
Right.
But you still have a good, where is it? There we go. A good connection. And of course it's being difficult.
But it would lay flat.
There we
usually.
go.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
So you just have, it is a sort of a knot, but it's not going to be sticking out. And you do that. And you can create your balls like that.
So that's going to have a much smoother texture overall.
Definitely.
And it looks like you can, I mean, you can really do this with kind of as far as your imagination will go.
You are limited by what you're willing to cut up out of your closet. So you can, this is, I haven't quite figured out exactly what's going to happen with that, but I've been collecting old jeans with the blown out knees or the blown out whatevers, and I've been cutting that. That's all cut by hand, and I'll cut each leg in a circular fashion, so I have these long strips from each leg, and it's waiting for its reason to be.
Would make a great rug or a great heavy neck piece.
I'm thinking a bedside mat for the guest room would be really nice to be able to step on some crunchy jeans first thing in the morning.
Well, that's great. It's great to know that you can kind of do whatever you want to do with scarves or with anything else.
Yarn is what you make of it.
Well, thanks, Mags.
Thanks.
We hope we've elevated the scarf into your next fashion project.
If you enjoyed today's show and want more tips, tricks, and great guest appearances, a DVD of Knitting Daily TV Series 400 is now available on knittingdailytv.com. Enjoy your favorite shows from this season whenever you'd like. Each DVD is $39.99 plus shipping and handling. Don't miss your favorite episode of Knitting Daily TV.